News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. It's a very simple bill that makes a simple change that has potentially huge ramifications for veterans. It's the Retained Skilled Veterans Act. On KBNU's For the People program on Thursday, Representative Blake Moore, who represents Utah's 1st Congressional District, explains what it does.
And what it simply does is it removes an arbitrary 180-day rule that is in place for when somebody is active duty and they want to go into the civilian workforce to the Department of Defense in some capacity. And it was in place a long time ago just to kind of dissuade a lot of revolving door type of stuff.
Moore said when military men or women are lost to the private sector, it's a good thing to celebrate because it recognizes the amazing training that goes through the defense-related world. But
you're losing that worker when they leave to go to the private sector. It's good for the private sector. I like to celebrate it. But we don't want to make it so they can't still maintain a good, solid job supporting our men and women in a civilian role.
He said the bill aims to remove the red tape in the process. Moore said the Utah Defense Alliance and Hill Air Force Base have been working with him on this. He said they have it in two different processes, a standalone bill and the Defense Authorization Act. So he said there are different avenues to take care of it. Another Utah city has joined Ogden or Salt Lake City in not setting off fireworks during the Independence Day holiday. The Ogden City Council this past week unanimously on Thursday night passed a resolution banning fireworks, open burning, and recreational fires within city limits. The ban will be in place until November 15th unless the Ogden City Fire Marshal determines that environmental conditions have improved enough to end the ban. Council members had previously said they were worried that water conservation measures intended to combat the state's drought have caused dry vegetation in the city that could create a fire risk, according to the city's meeting documents. And U.S. wildfire managers are considering shifting from seasonal to full-time firefighting crews to deal with what has become a year-round wildfire season and increasing pay and benefits to make the jobs more attractive. There's a push in Congress to increase firefighter pay and convert at least 1,000 seasonal wildland firefighters to permanent full-time year-round workers. U.S. Forest Service Deputy Chief Christopher French told the U.S. Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources on Thursday that firefighters are underpaid, with the number of fires this year already outpacing last year's destruction. Federal officials say they face a potential shortage of firefighters because of a low starting wage of $13 an hour. KBNU News Time is 4:08. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. And our forecast again for tonight, mostly cloudy early this evening with a slight chance of showers this evening, becoming mostly clear overnight, low around 50. And then tomorrow, looking at sunshine in mid-80s for the high. Right now, we have 73. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
Trouble with pain, sleep, or anxiety? Want better health? Try CBD7, the CBD experts. You simply can't get this water-soluble CBD at grocery, convenience, or health food stores. Water-soluble CBD7 absorbs 15 times better and tastes great. CBD7 has the only clinically proven formula with real measurable results. Many feel better in minutes. CBD7 is not a drug and has no side effects. Other CBDs just can't do all that. Visit CBD7 today. Learn about CBD and try our best for free.
They say diamonds are a girl's best friend, particularly when she's thinking of marriage. When it comes to this important decision, visit S. Needham Jewelers in historic downtown Logan. We have been the part of thousands of happy engagements. You'll enjoy our vast selection of beautiful and unique engagement rings. You'll also enjoy our relaxed and elegant environment. You'll not be hurried and you'll feel no pressure as you have fun looking for the perfect ring. Where Utah gets engaged. S. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Are bugs crawling all around your home's foundation? We have the right person for you. Sir, you work for Logan Extermination, don't you? Can you help these folks get rid of pesky bugs?
Of course I can help. I am the Terminator. I will terminate those little red devils and nasty spiders around your foundation.
That's right. This month, Logan Extermination can terminate the creepy crawlers around your foundation, starting at only $50. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome back to KVNU's. Welcome to KVNU's For the People. This is what happens when I've been here in the studio for a while, and I've actually
it's just like you've never left.
That's right. So I'm always welcome back. Welcome to KVNU's For the People.
You left for a few minutes to get a sandwich.
I went from
that was it
across the hall to here, and yeah, it seems like a new day. Hour one of today's show, Friday, June 25th. I'm Jason Williams. He's Bill Walter. You heard him there. And Andy Morgan of AndyAtTheMovies.com joining us soon. He'll be here for the second hour, 5 o'clock, for the For the People movie show. We have... Bill's familiar with this. Listeners might be somewhat familiar with it. Occasionally, a news story pops up that's embargoed, which means we're telling you in the media about it right now, but we'll do interviews, but we don't want this out until this date. Now, you can just ignore that. The media is not obliged to play along with that at all. Not ignore it in that, you can go talk about it. You have to at least respect the embargo unless you want to never hear from certain potential guests again. But you don't have to, conduct an interview then and sit on it. You can wait. I usually do. I find embargoes frustrating because I lack discipline. This was one of those situations where I did conduct an interview earlier today that is embargoed until July 1st, but I want to plug it just a little bit because the fact that the research is being conducted is not a secret. The fact that the report is coming out July 1st, not a secret. But because of a scheduling issue with our favorite contact at the Utah Women in Leadership Project, Dr. Susan Madsen, we conducted an interview today that we won't air until the research brief is published on July 1st. So you'll be able to hear that on July 1st show. But I want to just point everybody to this right now so they can be thinking about it because it is fascinating. The report coming out July 1st from the Utah Women in Leadership Project. And remember, they have focused so far on women as represented in government from city on up to legislature. They've done some research just this year on the impact of COVID-19 on women. They have conducted some research on childcare funding, subsidization by taxpayers in Utah, and the economic impact of lack of access to childcare. Just some fascinating stuff, and all of this happening through the Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. So, of course, there's an economic impact to this, or an economic interest to all of this research. This latest, though, which again will be published July 1st, is focused on the media. And it is, I mean, it's something that you've all probably read about, heard about, or maybe even thought about yourself. But it's research simply asking a different question. Do journalists talk to women differently? Specifically, women who are candidates for office. And I'll just go ahead and spoil this. Yes, in general, that is what was found, and that should be no surprise. Yeah. So we'll be able to talk about this on July 1st when the research brief is officially published. But I wanted to throw it out so listeners can kind of be thinking about it, because I'd like to conduct some research here myself. When you see a report on candidates in specifically these municipal races, if you see candidates being talked to differently, not just women and men, or looking at women, looking at men, but also maybe incumbents versus challengers, things like that, make a note of it and let me know. And we can talk about it, because there are a lot of unconscious biases out there. And this research brief, which will be published on July 1st, has me thinking about it a lot. Some examples from local politics in recent municipal elections made their way into this research, and it's fascinating. So we'll talk about it again July 1st. But right now, check out utwomen.org, the website for the Utah Women in Leadership Project, and enjoy yourself some of the research they've conducted there already. And we'll dig into it more with Dr. Susan Madsen on the 1st of July. So kind of become an accidental tradition here to start the show with updates on restrictions, fireworks, and fire restrictions and more. And the update for today is, no new statewide restrictions announced. We're still, we've got most of the state in stage 1 or stage 2, some parts of the state only in stage 1. And again, the difference is only that in stage 1 restrictions, campfires in improved campsites only are allowed. Once stage 2 restrictions are put in place, no campfires are allowed. I'm still guessing that here in northern Utah that will be the case by the 4th of July weekend. But we'll see. As of right now, we are still in stage 1. Fires allowed in improved campsites. Be sure to check posted restrictions, though, wherever you are headed for the weekend camping, if you are out in the hills, because there are some areas where this is different. So even though there is blanket-wide stage 1, blanket restrictions for the state, there are certain areas, even here in northern Utah, where they've had to actually go further due to the conditions in that specific area. As far as fireworks restrictions, everyone from the governor to legislative leaders to many cities and counties are urging people to just skip them this year for the sake of not burning the state down. But we'll see where that goes as far as official policy go. There's still an ongoing fight, or disagreement, I guess you'd say, between cities and the state legislature, and it's really not looking great for the state legislature on this one. The state legislature is trying to pass the buck. They don't want to take responsibility for calling a special session, which they'd have to do because they have to rewrite their own rules, and making it possible for a statewide fireworks ban to go in place. Even though, again, everybody thinks this might be a good idea, the legislature has made it impossible for the governor or for cities to do that, and only they have the power. They've consolidated that power into themselves. But now they're saying, well, no, cities can do it. Lawyers for cities and legislative attorneys are disagreeing with the legislators saying this, and that's kind of where things sit right now. So a lot of push for a statewide fireworks ban, and it is, I doubt the legislature is going to convene a special session before the July 4th holiday. It's too politically risky for them, and that's why they're waffling on this one. But, again, I don't know a statewide ban is the best policy. It seems to, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the conditions out there. I know that some areas that I've seen just driving the valley today, fireworks would be a horrible idea, and these aren't unincorporated county areas outside of the main part of the city. These are right in downtowns and main drags of cities. I've seen a lot of locations where fireworks would really be a horrible idea. There was some vandalism. I think this was in Draper. Someone spray painted on. You've seen these fireworks booths going up in parking lot, or these tents going up in parking lots. It's a annual tradition here in Utah. These are private companies who are able to set up, with the permission of whoever owns the parking lot, of course, these tents and sell fireworks there for about a month in Utah. A lot of money involved in that, a lot. And one of them was spray painted. Last night in Draper, someone had spray painted, "Don't burn the state down," all over the walls of the outside walls of the tent. There is a private fireworks company association that has threatened to sue cities in Utah because they are also, like cities, are agreeing with legislative attorneys and disagreeing with state lawmakers, saying it looks like the statute says cities can't ban fireworks. The legislature, again, is saying they can, and they're actually encouraging them to do so if they feel it's necessary. But everyone but these lawmakers who wrote the bill or wrote the law is saying the law does not allow them to. This needs to be changed immediately. Again, legislative leaders saying they just aren't, they don't agree, and they're not going to meet in special session to do so. We'll see where that goes. The lawsuit hasn't been filed; it's just been threatened by I forget the name of the company or the name of the association, but an association representing these private, sometimes nomadic fireworks sellers. And like I say, no official filing of a lawsuit, but threats made, and the threats based on the fact that their own interpretation of statute here in Utah agrees with that of cities and counties and the governor's office, and disagrees with the legislature, saying statute doesn't allow cities to actually ban fireworks. Again, the legislature saying it does, and cities should go ahead and do it if they feel it's necessary. This has happened a lot along the Wasatch Front. Yesterday I said the city closest to us that had actually banned fireworks outright was North Ogden. They said the conditions just do not make it a good idea this year at all. So fireworks will not be allowed within city limits. The problem there is, if you're familiar with the area, Plain City is unlikely to make the same decision. So you have a fire start in Plain City, it's going to burn to North Ogden pretty quickly. So that's the argument against this let cities decide thing, as opposed to some sort of statewide measure that, again, the legislature has made sure they're the only ones that can make this decision. That's kind of where things sat until today. Nibley City has now jumped in. This is, again, a confusing situation because cities aren't sure they have the authority to do this, but they're being told by the legislature, we wrote the statute, you have the authority to do this. If you go in and look at the statute actually says that in order for a city to ban fireworks, they have to have 2 of the last 5 years where it's been a problem, or when a certain area within the city has been a problem, and they have to submit that by May 1st, which, if you're familiar with calendars, is already passed. That's what the statute says. The legislature says, no, that's not what we meant. Go ahead and ban fireworks if you're a city and you feel it's necessary. Everyone's confused. So, June 22nd, there was a decision from members of the Cache County Council about fireworks concerns, and County Executive David Zook said that... Well, basically, Nibley, if they want to go ahead with this, he said, a former city manager for Nibley City, he's familiar with the city. He said Nibley has not only banned fireworks on the east side of Highway 165, but they've also banned all aerial fireworks. And Zook said, I believe that they are the only municipality in the county that has done that. Nibley City Manager Justin Mon confirmed that Nibley City Council had passed this resolution, a vote of 21-17, imposing these restrictions. That was done on June 10th, and Mon explained that city officials believe that given current weather conditions, the use of aerial fireworks in Nibley City just is an unacceptable risk. That was the comment made during the council meeting. Unacceptable risk to residents and property. Deputies from the Cache County Sheriff's Office, by the way, have said that, yes, they will enforce these bans. And that was according to Nibley City Manager Justin Mon. And they're encouraging residents to actually report any launch of aerial fireworks throughout the valley, not just in Nibley City. So Again, Governor Spencer Cox is saying that state law doesn't allow him to, but from what they're hearing from the state forester, reports from the counties, and reports from cities all around the state, he feels a statewide fireworks ban is probably warranted. But as of yet, no action from the legislature on that. And that is the latest. Like I say, become an accidental tradition here for the people to start out with these. We'll let you know if they change. But as of right now, Nibley City, the only city with restrictions on specific fireworks, no aerial fireworks, and a greatly limited area. In fact, if you're in Nibley, consider most of the city off limits when it comes to fireworks in general due to the dry conditions. So there are also some restrictions from Logan City. We talked about those. Those are done by street. So roughly east of 16th, east of Givens Parkway, north and south slopes of the island area, the gravel pit closure. This is an area of 1200 east and 10th north roughly. And there's a west closure as well, which is 6th west to the city boundary. So anything west of 6th west, no fireworks. And generally all the area around and north of the airport within Logan City boundaries, off limits to fireworks. And
you see signs all over the place now. My wife, we were driving 1800 south, just kind of west of Icon or IFID, that area. And a big sign right there, no fireworks west of this sign.
Yeah.
So for, the Logan Springs area, fireworks off limit there.
That's right. And they're taking it pretty seriously, as they should. It's pretty bad out there. So, and finally, final note on this, the Utah League of Cities and Towns jumping into this debate over statute on who has and does not have the authority to ban fireworks. Utah League of Cities and Towns jumping in with a statement just today saying unequivocally to the legislature, paraphrasing here, but they're basically saying, get off your duffs and act. You wrote this statute. Cities are confused. They're afraid of getting sued. Do something. It's your job. We'll see if the legislature responds. A link to the story on this at cachevalleydaily.com, specifically focusing on these new restrictions that have been put in place in Nibley after a city council vote. Some of the toughest fireworks restrictions in the valley so far there in Nibley City, including an outright ban on all aerial fireworks within city limits. Link to that story on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
If you're near retirement or thinking about retiring, you probably have questions. How do you make your savings last? How much should you take out and when? You're ready for retirement, but are your finances? Your Edward Jones financial advisor can help you build a strategy to help your finances keep up with your needs over the long haul. You've done what it takes to get there. Now it's time to make the most of retirement. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's time to find out who won this year's Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Brought to you by Thermo Fisher. Listen Thursday morning, July 1st. Or go to bestofnorthernutah.com. Over 800 businesses were nominated and over 100,000 votes were cast. Thursday, July 1st, we'll share the results as we unveil gold and silver winners in 164 different categories. Thank you for participating in the 2021 Best of Northern Utah contest.
This is for those who always show they care, who told their kids everyone 12 and older is eligible for a COVID vaccine. Those who explained to their cousins that vaccines prevent nearly 100% of hospitalizations and deaths from COVID-19. This is for the ones protecting those they love. Thank you.
We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Adams Wealth Advisors have helped thousands of people create financial peace of mind. Understanding your family, job, hobbies, and goals is how Adams Wealth Advisors earn the long-term trust of the individuals they proudly serve.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we're here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com. That's AdamsWealthAdvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Not at all related to any current headlines, but it's probably something that's been a part of more than just my day. But, Bill, have you ever, totally innocent intentions, have you ever just really socially stepped in it? You just, a comment or, something even meant as a compliment sometimes, and it's just, you find out later the wrong time, wrong place, or something.
You mean on Facebook?
No, in person, socially.
Oh.
What this is I've
had a lifetime of doing that.
Well, so I ran into a woman during my day job work week this week, and we chatted for a while. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, and I asked about her family, and she said everybody was great and everything. We talked for quite a while, and then she'd mentioned, without really providing any details or any that I heard at least, she'd mentioned that her husband had taken a new job and that he seemed to be liking it. And it was just this conversation. Nothing stood out about it other than it was great to see her again. And so then later I thought, wow, I'll congratulate her husband on the new job and all this stuff. And so I sent him a message on Facebook. I'm just, hey, I ran into your wife, and she mentioned you got a new job and you're doing okay, and glad to hear all that. Well, anyway. Turns out they'd gotten divorced, and the new job that she'd mentioned that he'd gotten was actually the second job because he was paying off a lot of anyway. So it ended up being this really actually not great situation for either one of them. And here I am, like, oh, you look great. Glad to hear you're doing well. And then, bringing it up with him and, rubbing salt in the wound a little bit, hey, I heard you got a new job, I said. And I said, actually, my exact words were, I talked to your wife, heard you got a new job, congratulations. And he thought I was being mean because he said, well, she probably told you that because it's actually my second job. I'm trying to dig myself out of my poor decisions. So thanks for rubbing that in. And we're good friends. So, he took it as a joke. And I had to apologize. I was not trying to rub salt in the wound. I thought you'd just gotten a new job and thought that was great. Oh, man. It's,
you don't know.
You just, you best of intentions, and then you just step in it.
And then there are the people who do that sort of thing on purpose to rub salt in
why
something.
don't you ask so-and-so about, I've got a couple friends like that. Yeah. That always reminds me of there's a video. It's an old Vine, and now I think it's made its way to TikTok, and even occasionally I've seen it on Instagram, but it's a cat. The cat's sitting on a counter, and there are glasses, pens, a cup, like just all these things sitting around the cat, and the cat's just sitting there one by one, shoving them off the counter onto the floor. And there's a voiceover, a woman's voice saying, am I the drama? Do I cause it? I can't be the cause of the drama. Wait, maybe I am the cause of the drama. And this cat's just shoving everything off one by one. Makes me think of that every time. But yeah, just I guess the lesson from all this is just keep your mouth shut. Even if I'm kidding. Sometimes you just you're trying to be nice.
stumble, and our tongue stumbles all the time.
Yeah, it's
all of us.
It's part of life. It's what happens. But I'm still happy for them. They seemed like they were doing great, personally at least. Anyway.
You never know.
That's right. On the other side, this is going to be a pretty big legislative session coming up in 2022. And one of the issues that is already getting a lot of discussion is childcare. And the debate specifically over childcare is a debate, and we'll talk about this in the future with Dr. Susan Madsen from the Utah Women in Leadership Project, because this is actually something she's researched and written about. But The policy debate is really a debate over how much. There's no debate over whether or not the state should be subsidizing childcare to make it more accessible. That's not a debate. What is a debate is what's the right dollar amount. Everyone agrees the lack of access to childcare has productivity costs for businesses, has economic costs for the state. People actually even quit jobs or turn down promotions or decide not to start a business that might hire 50 people one day because what are you going to do with the kids? And this affects men and women, and it's an issue. And so it's a worthwhile expense for the state to offset some of these costs, to do what they can to make it more accessible. But again, the question is how much? What's the right dollar amount? What is required? What's the right amount of childcare? What's the demand out there? Well, Utah lawmakers are actually getting creative about how to assess all of this headed into the 2022 session. We'll talk about how they're going to do that this fall right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:35. The news is brought to you by Cache Valley Pharmacy. Utah's list of pandemic-long coronavirus fatalities grew to 2,351, with 14 more COVID deaths added Friday, adding 10 of them, although 10 of them occurred prior to May 25th. The 309 new coronavirus cases in today's report are fewer than the current rolling 7-day average for positive tests, which is 324 a day. There were 16 new cases in 3 northern Utah counties since Thursday, and a new total of 22,254 in the Bear River District since the start of the pandemic. Of that total, 21,957 are classified as recovered. There have been 413,317 coronavirus cases in Utah since the start of the pandemic, and the number of fully immunized people in the Bear River Health District is 51.3%, or 66,686 individuals. That includes 52.5% in Cache County, 45.9% in Box Elder County, and 47.1% in Rich County. A total of 143,635 doses have been administered in northern Utah. A drought blanketing the U.S. West is drying up waterways, sparking wildfires, and leaving farmers scrambling for water. Next up, cue the voracious grasshoppers. U.S. agriculture officials are launching what could become their largest campaign since the 1980s to kill grasshoppers in western states. Ranchers fear the insects will strip bare the public and private rangeland where cattle graze. In central Montana, more than 50 miles from the nearest town, rancher Frank Witterick says the grasshoppers are cleaning them out and fears he'll have to sell his cows as the infestation worsens. Scientists say such outbreaks could become more common as climate change shifts rainfall patterns. And the Supreme Court says an expanded number of small refineries can seek an exemption from certain renewable fuel requirements. The High Court ruled 6-3 today that a small refinery that had previously received a hardship exemption from complying with Clean Air Act requirements may obtain an extension of that exemption. That's even if the refinery let a previous exemption lapse. The Biden administration argued that to get an extension in a refinery had to have maintained a continuous exemption since 2011. Refineries in Utah, Wyoming, and Oklahoma argued that siding with the Biden administration would eliminate the exemption for most small refineries in the United States. KVNU News Time is 4:39.
This is Phil with Cache Valley Pharmacy. We love being in Cache Valley and want to thank you for your support. Cache Valley Pharmacy features the best prices in the valley, and as always, free delivery. If you're in the market for prescriptions, check first with Cache Valley Pharmacy for the absolute best prices, especially on compounds and insulin. We've been doing pharmacy better than anyone else in the valley with free delivery valley-wide for the last 19 years. Cache Valley Pharmacy, the pharmacy delivery experts. Order your prescriptions online at cachevalleypharmacy.com.
KVNU weather tonight, partly cloudy, isolated showers and thunderstorms this evening, overnight low in the mid-50s, and then sunny mid-80s on Saturday, sunny and upper 80s on Sunday. It's been to 77 is all today. Right now we have 75 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Bring back the sounds you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones, bringing you the closing financial market report for Friday, June 25th. Markets closed the week out on a positive note after last week's Fed-driven volatility. The S&P 500 sits at an all-time high and had its best week since February amid new hopes for an infrastructure package. The energy, financials, and consumer discretionary sectors led the market higher for the week as value outperformed growth. Amid high inflation readings, the U.S. 10-year yields traded higher, and European and Asian stocks were largely higher today as well. In equities, the Dow was up 237 points at 34,434. The Nasdaq was down 9 points at 14,360, and the S&P closed up 14 points at 4,281. In bond markets, the 10-year Treasury is at 1.53%, and in commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up 70 cents at $74 even, and the spot price of gold was up $2.80 to $1,779.50. In stocks of local interest, Apple was down 30 cents at $133.11, Autoliv up 6 cents at $99.79, Campbell's Soup up 56 cents at $45.76, GE up 2 cents at $13.16, Home Depot up $1.79 at $313.63, Lowe's up 91 cents at $192.66, Nucor was down $1.19 at $96.69. Procter & Gamble up $1.90 at $134.92. R.R. Donnelley & Sons down 26 cents at $6.35. Thermo Fisher was down $2.49 at $492.87. Wells Fargo up $1.20 at $46.38. Walmart up $1.62 at $138.53. And Zions was up $1.27 at $55.48. This has been Clayton McMurdy with today's financial market report, brought to you by Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main Street. If you'd like current stock prices or any additional information, please give us a call at 435-753-0537 or contact any of our 7 branches here in Cache Valley.
Projects outside go much better after a stop by Stevens Forest Products. Pick up bark, mulch, or compost by the bag for $1 or $2 less at Stevens, or buy it in bulk and save even more. Stevens is also your best source for flagstone, perfect for patios and walkways. Choose from 7 color choices. Pick up a few pieces or take home a pallet. Delivery options are available. Stevens is also home to over 5,000 in-stock railroad ties with prices beginning at $13.99. Stevens Forest Products, between Smithfield and Logan at 3277 North Main.
Hey, it's Al Lewis. Happy spring. I love this beautiful weather, but if you struggle with CPAP, you may not be getting the sleep you need to go outside and enjoy it. Fortunately, now there's Inspire, a sleep apnea treatment that works inside your body with just the click of a remote. That's right, a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Learn more at InspireSleep.com. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I'm Jason Williams. Coming up at 5 o'clock, the For the People movie show with Andy Morgan of AndyAtTheMovies.com. We're behind a little bit. So we only got to one of the new movies out of 3 last weekend. And then we have new movies hitting this weekend as well. And we'll also finally talk about In the Heights. It's been really interesting to watch the public reaction to this one, Bill, because I haven't seen it, but it's a musical. It's written by the some of the folks, at least, that were behind the Hamilton musical that was a huge hit for years now, on Broadway and in film form recently. But I think that's still on Disney Plus only. But anyway, In the Heights, written by some of the same people, getting big thumbs up from critics. Audiences are loving it, and then audiences are hating it. And then they're loving it again, and it's almost taken on sort of a
love-hate relationship.
Yeah, and there's almost, I hesitate to use the word political because there's not really any kind of public policy angle or anything like that to this, or has nothing to do with politicians but it's kind of political in that the love-hate seems to be tied to whether people agree or disagree on the representation of the Ashbury Heights neighborhood, or Washington Heights neighborhood, sorry. And this is an area with a lot of history, to say the least, Washington Heights. That's why this was made. That's why that's why this is the setting for the In the Heights movie or musical. Wow, spacing on the word there. But this is Washington Heights has been the location of a lot of national firsts. It's tied to a lot of the history of what makes New York City famous in the first place. But it's also one of the poorest areas in New York City. It's also an area that's been used as political football over the years. It's an area where a lot of changes have happened that in the recent years we've decided were huge mistakes. For example, Washington Heights was actually a kind of a petri dish for a lot of war on drugs policies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Someone would have an idea and they would kind of try it out in Washington Heights. It's an area that has gone back and forth between high crime and low crime very quickly, sometimes year to year. So it's an area with a complicated history. It's in the uppermost part of New York City, for those curious, and it's actually considered part of Manhattan, but it's like the forgotten part of Manhattan, probably intentionally by a lot of the more well-to-do people. It's also the highest natural point on the island of Manhattan. I didn't know that, actually. But Washington Heights, before the 20th century, there was hardly anyone there. Just a couple of gigantic mansions, a couple of very wealthy families. And then it was rapidly developed in the early 1900s as travel became easier and more efficient. It was sort of connected to the rest of Manhattan by subway lines as well. And so it was at one time a spot for every new business. Every business wanted to locate there. This was sort of an area where all the up-and-coming, the startups of the time, the early 20th century, wanted to be located in Washington Heights. And then, things changed. So it's also one of the few areas in New York City that's actually known for a lot of green space, which is rare if you've ever visited New York City. So, but it's primarily it's an area that has a lot of history, and it is when you hear that cliche about America's melting pot, that is Washington Heights is what they're talking about. This is one of the most ethnically diverse parts of the country, at least for a small space, which is basically a borough within a larger city. So this is one of the reasons that I think both that this musical has been made, why Washington Heights was the setting for the Hamilton writers' In the Heights musical. But I think it's also one of the reasons that it's just been strange to watch this even sort of become controversial. It's a debate over whether the actual history of the area is being represented well in the film, but also it's become a debate over what's happening now, what should be happening now. How can these communities that have kind of been forgotten, left behind, left to become, areas where they're more known for thefts and burglaries than they are new businesses opening, when just 50 years ago it was sort of the opposite. By the way, the area has seen actually a huge crime drop, along with the rest of New York City over the last few years, so things are improving. But that's sort of the debate that's erupted around this film, this musical called In the Heights. And it's been really interesting to watch. And again, the demographics of Washington Heights are you'd be hard-pressed to find more diverse places in the country. It's almost a exact equal split between different races, the racial makeup of the neighborhood itself. And so it's an area that deserves a lot of attention, I think. Historically, there's a lot of lessons. Like I said, a lot of the drug war policies were first trial ballooned in Washington Heights, and then surprisingly, despite their failure there, adopted as national policy anyway. And just a lot of examples like that going back over the years. And I guess some of that makes its way into the film. So, but again, it's really intriguing to me to see this, kind of a very broad public policy debate erupt around what is essentially a musical about a family in a neighborhood that has a lot of history itself, but is also tied very closely to a lot of U.S. history. So, In the Heights playing here in Logan. We'll be talking about it and hearing Andy's review in Hour 2 of today's show here on KVN News for the People. We'll be back to finish up Hour 1 right after this.
Hi, this is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. At White Pine, we value compassion, integrity, and service. We are committed to serving you and treating your family as our family. We will be here when you need us most, to listen, to help, and to provide exactly what your circumstances require. At White Pine, we promise to dedicate our time and attention to you and your family. We invite you to come by and meet us. We're confident you'll feel a difference.
This is Rod Hammer, Cache County Fire Chief, asking for your help. Due to current and forecasted weather conditions, coupled with the record dry vegetation and extreme fire danger throughout Utah, the state forester has determined that measures must be taken to prevent the ignition of forest and rangeland fires. Therefore, pursuant to state law, the following acts are prohibited until rescinded by the Utah State Forester. No open fires of any kind except within established facilities, in improved campgrounds or day-use areas on public lands, or in permanently constructed fire pits at permanent private dwellings served by pressurized running water. No smoking except within an enclosed vehicle, trailer, or building, a developed recreation site, or while stopped in an area that is paved or free from dry vegetation. No cutting, welding, or grinding metal in areas of dry vegetation. No operating a motorcycle, chainsaw, ATV, or other small internal combustion engine without an approved and working spark arrestor. This order affects all state lands and all unincorporated private lands within the state of Utah. Violations of this order could be punishable by up to 6 months in jail and a fine of up to $1,000.
You've been putting up with a dirty, dusty wood stove for years. Why haven't you changed it? Go to Advanced Fireplace and Stove in Logan. Look through their showroom for ideas on Quadra-Fire pellet and wood stoves and Heat and Glow gas fireplaces. They have several demos in place so you can see firsthand how your project will look. And you can trust the pros at Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They'll do the job right. Advanced Fireplace and Stove. 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Every Saturday morning at 9, you get information to prepare you with retirement solutions for the journey ahead. It's Smart Money Ascent with Clayton Alexander of Teton Wealth Group.
How do we solve that number one fear or that number one concern? Make sure you never run out of money.
And Teton Wealth Group's Ethan Miller.
Then, when you leave Teton, when you leave our offices, you're going to have a plan that you're both excited about.
It's where your retirement questions are answered. Smart Money Ascent, Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
On the next Handle on the Law.
When do you plan? By the way, when do you plan on dying, Arthur? You seem reasonably healthy. When do you plan on dying?
One guy gave me 6 months about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. All right. What do you have? What are you suffering from?
Pickled liver.
Pickled liver. Yeah, you did a fair amount of drinking, huh?
Yeah, I got my share.
Okay, good enough. Actually, it was a good question. Transporting a body across state lines.
It's Handle on the Law, Saturdays from 1 to 4 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Wrapping up hour one of today's show, again, the For the People movie show coming up at 5 o'clock. We'll also be talking a little bit about the Netflix premiere schedule. Netflix and HBO Max are in a little bit of a fight over who can take the biggest chunk out of in-person theater chains. Basically, it seems, I don't know if this is an intentional goal, but that's basically what it's coming down to with premieres, brand new movies that will premiere on these streaming services before being seen anywhere else. And so Netflix just kind of announced a schedule stepping up the game a little bit in this this war of premieres. So we'll talk about that in hour 2 as well with Andy Morgan as he arrives for the People movie show coming up in just a few minutes. I wanted to point this to listeners because we've had a lot of questions about this, and we'll be starting next week our look and our spotlights at municipal candidates and our look at municipal and local races here in Cache Valley. But there is to answer a few listeners' questions who have asked this week, there is a great summary of every race in the valley from Wellsville to Amalga, and that is something you can find at CacheValleyDaily.com. The article by Charlie Schill, who was our guest yesterday talking theater here in the studio, Charlie has posted a summary of every race in the valley, every candidate in each race, and that is available at CacheValleyDaily.com in the article titled Candidates Queue Up for Local Municipal Elections, and I've linked to that on our Facebook page as well. So if you'd like to keep an eye out, one of these emails was from a listener who said, look, I'm not even sure what seats are open in my city this year. So your first good resource on this is your city's website. And I know some cities are better than others. Looking at you, Wellsville. And I'll let you guys decide which category they fall into, better than others or not. Then there are some who are just great, absolutely great. Logan City does an amazing job, and of course they've got more money to put towards this type of thing. North Logan does a really great job of this as well. And then again, there are others who could really kind of step up their game a bit. Wellsville. So, and not just Wellsville. I like to pick on them because I actually love the city. So anyway, a full list of every candidate in every race and every open seat that will be on the ballot in the municipal races this fall for your respective cities. And again, that is Amalga to Wellsville, north to south, all summarized in the article at CacheValleyDaily.com, Candidates Queue Up for Local Municipal Elections. And some final inbox business to get to here as we transition out of the more serious news into the world of movies with Andy Morgan for hour 2. We also had a listener email in and ask us to pass this message on to Congressman Blake Moore, which I have, but I wanted to share it with other listeners out there as well, with the permission of the person who emailed it in. Of course, they said that was fine with them. But the email was in regards to our interview yesterday. Yesterday with Congressman Moore, we started out originally talking about the veterans bill he sponsored. You can read about that at CacheValleyDaily.com. Towards the end of the interview, we spent about half the time on 2 other issues that had just popped up in the news cycle this week. One of those being the infrastructure bill. Senate apparently has reached some kind of agreement to have an agreement, which is surprisingly progress after months of none of that. No bill is officially out there yet, but it appears that most people are all on board, and the Speaker of the House agreeing that she'll hold a vote on this if the Senate sends it over. She had her own conditions as well that we discussed yesterday with Congressman Moore. And as Congressman Moore said, his main concern is whether it ends up being deficit neutral or not. It's not going to get a vote for a couple of weeks. The third thing we talked to Congressman Moore about was this conservative climate caucus. And that's when an email arrived from a listener late last night saying they'd heard the interview and that they were just really impressed with, and I quote here, with permission from the author of the email, I was really impressed with the ability of Congressman Moore to express this in a way that was not off-putting. Listener goes on to detail, and again, I'm repeating this with permission from the author of the email who sent this in, goes on to detail that he or she, they don't give their name, he or she has been put off before by some of the conversation around climate change and some of the, quote, in-your-face tactics of those most concerned about it. A listener says, I've always been concerned about it, but sometimes maybe a childish part of me even wants to resist what feels like everyone telling me what I need to do. I was very impressed yesterday to hear Congressman Moore speak about something as serious as climate change and as important as our need to do something about it sooner rather than later, but do so in a way that seemed almost inclusive. He mentioned talking to businesses. He mentioned talking with even those in the fossil fuel industries about how we can move forward together, and I really appreciated that. Hope there is more talk like this instead of the alternative. So, just wanted to throw that out. I passed that on, by the way, to Congressman Moore, as the listener requested, and haven't heard back on that yet, but I wanted to share that with others as well. If you'd like to listen to that interview, you can do so via the podcast.